in isolation, trying to homeschool kids and then holiday kids. It's been a really challenging time for everyone, and everyone's got their unique story. But I might just start really quickly with a story about my hair. Maybe some of you people have heard this story before, but it's a nice one about, I think, having to deal with some feedback or dealing with some adversity. I had this young boy, we were down at Cottesloe with my young family. We've got 3 young kids, all under the age of 7. So that's the first mistake we made this morning, was trying to have a peaceful breakfast with our young family. But there was this young lad that was walking by in front of us, and he was just staring at me as he went by. And obviously, having played footy here in Perth for 17 years and now being in the media, you do get recognised from time to time. But it wasn't until a few minutes later, this young lad walked by and stopped right in front of where we were sitting. And I looked up from the chaos and said, "Oh, hi mate, how you going?" He took one step forward and said, "You know what? If you dyed your hair black, you'd look exactly like Matthew Pavlich." So it was a nice reminder that people quickly forget who you are, and that, yeah, these are grey tassels. This is what happens when you get a bit older, everyone on the line. So whether it's bald or grey or something.
Children, I think that'll do that to you.
But so, I think the first thing that I'd like to recognise throughout this period is that, everyone has different feelings and emotions with this, and how you deal with this is kind of how maybe you deal with adversity or setbacks or failures or just challenging times. I think in your own lives, like, some people will see this and be on the spectrum of this is a great opportunity, glass half full, optimistic, dig in and get to work and sort of manage the solution. How do I action myself out of this? And quite clearly, there'll be everyone in between, right to the other end of the spectrum, where others will, the natural reaction or tendency will to be, recoil and, be really concerned and worried and uncertain. And so everyone is on that spectrum, right? And it's okay. That's fine to be wherever you are on that. And I must admit, I think there's been times over the past 4 weeks where I've probably oscillated between the two. And, that's the other part, I think, is that not every day you wake up wanting to dominate and smash out the world. And I can guarantee you, I think there's this perception of athletes and particularly probably AFL players previously that, they were bulletproof and they woke up every day just wanting to train really hard and be their best self and just dominate. I can tell you for a fact, in my 17 years, even though I was living my boyhood dream day after day, week after week, year after year, I didn't wake up often feeling $1 million and wanting to smash out the day or smash out the world. Whether I was a bit sore, whether I was a bit grumpy, whether I was anything else in between. Not many people, and I'm glad if you're one of them, but not many people wake up every day feeling their absolute best self and ready to dominate. And so, actually having some level of discipline and routine to help kickstart you, I think, is really important. And whatever that may be, whether it's a walk, whether it's exercise, whether it's down the beach, who knows what it may be, meditation, yoga, however you best function after something in the morning, I think that really helps. But what the AFL world taught me was that having a thick skin, having some level of resilience and building that up is actually really, really important. A former coach of mine used to say, you get more kicks up the arse than licks of the ice cream being an AFL footballer. And it's a bit crass, I know, but it's true, I think. And that's really how life is. I think we all want to succeed and we all want to be gifted things and we all want to be able to achieve. But the reality is it's small steps, day after day, week after week, time after time, that actually brings you some level of success and fulfillment and enjoyment in the long run. And so, right now we're all getting a kick up the arse. We're all getting a kick up the backside with this COVID-19. We can't socialise. We can't hang out with our friends that often. We're all doing it virtually. Finance is probably a challenge for most people right now. Job security, all those things. There's so much uncertainty out there. So we're all getting a fair kick right now. But hopefully on the back end of this, if we can hang in there together, keep reaching out, keep supporting people, then we will eventually get a lick of the ice cream.
No pun intended. So those that haven't been following your career since footy, Matthew, you're up to a lot. I know you haven't, you didn't exactly go on holiday after your AFL career finished, after you retired. You got straight into business, and I know you did your MBA and a few other things. What are you doing today? What are the many hats that you wear?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. I guess people probably see me on the telly a bit with Fox Footy and also Channel 9. So they're my media roles that I have. But I have three sort of business interests of mine, which I'm actively involved in, some more than others. So PMY Group's an independent technology advisory group, which sort of works in large scale infrastructure projects and stadiums. Clearly been affected by COVID-19 with no events and no real activations right now in stadiums and large infrastructure or precinct projects around the world. Pickstar is an online platform that connects athletes with commercial opportunities. Again, clearly been impacted at this point in time, although what we've been able to do is sort of sidestep a little bit, and now we're doing lots of the activations online in this sort of format. So getting athletes and talent to join virtual meetings. So that's been interesting, but again, a big impact there. And Lumen technology is also like a wellbeing app, and also a tool for both sports and corporates. So yeah, I guess for me, having and then 3 young kids as well, so plenty going on. I guess for me, having played in the AFL, when I was playing, I did a Bachelor of Science undergrad, and then finished my MBA. I was the president of the Players Association, and I always wanted to have other interests, because I think if you pigeonhole yourself to one thing, it can be a risk, in the sense that you're not balanced and you're not having other aspects of your life or the other buckets where you can learn and help round you out as a human being. I mean, my number one focus was being the best captain and leader and player I could be. Don't get me wrong, and I put all my efforts into that. But when it was time to check out, when it was time to think about something else, I was able to compartmentalize, put that to a side, and then focus on other things and learn in other aspects of my life, which always and only benefited my footy. And I think that's the case now with the variety of things I'm doing. So yeah, pretty busy, but really, if I kind of get bored. I think I'm sort of one of those people that wants to always have things on the go that keeps me active and my mind ticking over.
And so a lot of people during COVID have had to pivot in some way, whether it's personally their business, or I've seen a lot of businesses meet a need that wasn't there previously to COVID. How did you do that? It sounds like it was a really conscious choice in hindsight, but how have you done that over the last 10 years, and to have succeeded so much in pivoting your career in so many different ways?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I look at it as pivoting, sidestepping, adapting. I mean, for those that know biology and Charles Darwin, it is about adaptation. How have we as human beings continue to evolve and adapt to environments? It's sort of natural selection. And I guess for me, it's about being able to adapt to evolve as a human being. And it's essentially just trying to be better every day. And how do you become better every day? Well, it's about exposing yourself to fresh and new ideas. It's about you and other people challenging you on a daily basis to get better and to improve, and to keep adapting. Another saying that I sort of heard throughout my AFL career was, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's important to feel safe. It's important to feel safe to take risks. It's important to feel safe to fail. It's important to feel safe to be able to be your true self. Don't get me wrong, that is 100% important in any organization, in any family, in any group of friends. But the only way you grow as a person, it's a little bit about growing a muscle. How do you grow a muscle? Well, you actually have to put it under a bit of stress. You actually have to put it under a bit of tension. And I think it's a good analogy for how you grow as an individual. No one grows by sitting at home feeling comfortable and not doing something and not trying something and not being willing to put it all out there and failing. The only way you grow as an individual and as a team is actually by putting a little bit of stress and tension in that relationship, in that environment, on you as a person. So if you can somehow get comfortable being uncomfortable, having a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of stress is actually a good thing. Not too much, don't get me wrong. Too much is a really bad thing. And that's in a relationship, that's as a human being, that's as a workplace. Too much stress is a really bad thing. Too much stress on a muscle, you'll tear it and it'll break. But a little bit, just enough to test yourself, be willing to fail, be willing to take a risk, with that safety network to, hey, that's okay, you're able to do that, is a really important thing. I think that's kind of what I learned, and that's what I continue to think about when you're dealing with a pretty challenging situation like we are. So whether it's business, yourself, personally, your own circumstances, just continue to adapt, continue to take calculated risks, and importantly, continue to be yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. So usually what we do at the start of our webinars is we get everyone that's on the webinar to introduce themselves so we know who we're speaking to. Now, I may offend you, Matthew. So we've got Emily on the webinar. She's a Richmond supporter though, full disclosure. That's
okay. She probably wouldn't have said that 3 years ago, but now they've won a couple of flags, she's happy to say that, Emily.
Everyone's a Richmond supporter. Yeah, and so she's using her time in isolation to draw again. We've obviously heard Brody's 2 cents because he's always adding his 2 cents about me. And then anyone else, that feel free to introduce yourself just so we know who's on the webinar. And then Facebook Live has booted me out 3 times, so I'll record this session and then load it to Facebook after. Cool. So if anyone wants to introduce themselves, and also feel free to ask questions during the webinar as well, and I'll interject those and Matthew will answer them when.
Yeah, I've got the chat portal open so I can see if you're bagging me or something, saying something nasty. So.
Oh, we've got one for you.
Oh, here we go.
Right.
Up the Dockers. I'm 18 and live in Dunsborough. Oh, nice to have you. Is it Caris, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Caris. I think they're all our camp alumni at the moment. So
brilliant.
I think so. Beautiful. So let's now talk about challenges. So over your career, let's talk football. You would have faced a lot of challenges. You would have faced challenges both on the field, off the field, as a captain, and then also with the Players Association. How did you handle challenge, and how did you improve in the way you handled challenge over over your career and the more you grew?
It's funny, when you first asked that question, I take myself back to when I was in year 10 as a 15-year-old. Is that about what you are in year 10? And I'd set some pretty lofty ambitions, both in the classroom and also on the field as such, but particularly, I was going to say in sport, but particularly in footy. And at the end of the year, I'd sort of achieved a number of them, but not quite some of them. And then I had this real focus of wanting to train hard across the pre-season, hit the pre-season hard, do well at school, and then have these achievements the following year. Long story short, I had a significant groin injury. My pubic bone, what's now sort of termed as osteitis pubis or groin awareness or whatever they term it. But basically, my pubic bone had a huge stress reaction in it, and I was told that I couldn't play sport for 6 months, nothing, and I couldn't even. There was I think a period of 2 months where I couldn't walk. I could only walk a period of time where I could then jog, and sort of it was just a big hit to. And I remember I had sort of this thing I'd written up on my pin board at home about what I was wanting to achieve and what I wanted to do, and I basically walked in and just tore it down because I was so devastated and frustrated that I wasn't able to do that. In that moment, in that time, it feels like the worst thing in the entire world that this is going to happen. It's going to destroy me. It's going to destroy who I am as a person. All those things in between. And yet, 18 months later, I got drafted to Fremantle. So, it's and in that 18 months, you learn, and in that time I was injured, you learn to deal with what's your initial reaction, how you gather yourself, and what really motivates you. And that was a great lesson for me to learn as a pretty young kid. And I must admit, I'm not sure I actually got all the richness of those learnings as a 15-year-old, but it's now, what's that, sort of 20 odd years later, that you can look, or 23 years later, you can look back and go, oh, wow, like, yeah, I learned that, for me, if I get challenged or if something significant happens, I have this eruption of sort of anger and disappointment. And then I go insular for a period of time. That's probably not the right thing to do, but for me, I go insular. I think, I process it, which might take a day or two. And then I use that as motivation to get into work, and just from that point on, I'll work my butt off to prove that person wrong, or to prove myself wrong, or to get that goal that I was aiming for. Yeah. And so I think, that lesson as a 15-year-old played itself out time and time again in my AFL career as a young player. When I didn't get picked in my first few games as an AFL player, whether it was I had an injury as a captain, if things weren't going well as a team, when we were a young team, sort of fledgling team, 08-09, before we went on a period of final success. It's all those lessons that you learn along the way that helps you deal, with trying to be better, and accepting that stuff's going to happen in life, and lots of bad things, and good things are going to happen to you. It's about staying as balanced as you can, using those lessons as key drivers to performance. And when I say performance, it's about, getting in and working and acting and whatever that may be. So, lots of lessons along the way, but hopefully there's a couple there that are poignant.
Yeah, and so you describe the way that you address challenge, or who you are in the face of challenge. So first you get a little bit angry and you rip things off your wall and do what I think a lot of people do, and how a lot of people would handle setbacks like that. And then you go into a period of sort of internal, yep, processing, how do I feel about this, etc. And that can be a short period or a long period, and there's nothing wrong with that. Is that how you dealt with COVID? Is that kind of it? Because that's your automated response. Is that similar? And then in that time of process, how do you speed it up for yourself, or how have you adapted? Because we don't have the luxury as parents to sit in that space for a long period of time and reflect and go, who do I want to be in 2 years, and how can I pivot and all of that fun stuff that you could do before. So how do you flip yourself out of it faster than you used to, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's, matter of circumstance a little bit, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a parent. You kind of have to move to solution mode pretty quickly. There's less time to, be angry, less time to mope around, less time to, say, poor me. It's more about, and I think footy also taught me that, hey, let's put things in perspective. At the time as a footballer, if you lose a game or you play poorly or whatever it may be, it feels like the worst thing in the world. And there's, people talking about you and the spotlight's on you. But really, in the context of life, it's very small, right? So, as long as you've got important people that you care about around you, as long as you can, put food on the table for your family, then things are okay. And I think that's, similar to what happened a couple of weeks ago, call it a month ago with this pandemic. Was okay. Everyone's all right. Everyone's healthy. We're going to take a hit financially. There's a few things we're going to have to, manage and work through. But I've been able to move, I think, quickly into solution mode. I think, again, as an athlete, what happens is always these distractions and noise on the outside. But what athletes are really good at is just expressly focusing on the next 30 minutes, the next 2 hours, the next training session, because unfortunately, that's the only way to block everything out, to have this express and intent focus on what really matters right now. All the rest of it, it'll still be there, but what matters right now? And that could be an exam, that could be, for some of the young people listening, that could be a test coming up. It could be just worrying, helping your family, whatever it could be, helping a friend out for that period of time. Athletes are pretty good at that. And that's another lesson that I learned. So, focusing on what really matters and getting into solution mode, I think is probably what I quickly shifted, call it 3 or 4 weeks ago into.
Yeah, right. And we've also got, I just want to say hi to Cohen on the webinar. He has been, Cohen might be a female, I'm assuming male by the name, has been a Dockers fan since he can remember, and you were his favourite player.
Thank you, Cohen. It's very nice of you to say.
Awesome. All right, so we spoke about the challenge that you experienced, you know, when you were in year 10 and then you got drafted quite soon after that. Are there any other challenges you can think of that happened during your football career or even since then that have helped shape you as a person and that you can share some of your lessons from that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's personal lessons around losing loved ones that you'd like to have around. There's lessons around people who I'm very close with having, you know, severe anxiety issues or mental health problems. There's lessons around, you know, being a young leader and thinking that you had to be bulletproof and take everything on yourself and try to dominate, and realizing that actually showing vulnerability and speaking about how you're feeling and putting your hand up and saying, you know what, I don't have all the answers. I got this wrong. I let you down. Like, showing that vulnerability is actually a great strength. But it wasn't until, you know, I went through that experience as a young captain at sort of 24, 25 that you learn those things. You know, having a group of people that are driven and have a common purpose, that's critical. But again, it's also really important to have, and so within that common purpose, having a really strong feedback loop, being able to, you know, look someone in the eye and tell them exactly how they think and be honest with each other. But it's also equally important to have a safe environment so you can do that, and that people, as I said before, are willing to make mistakes and feel safe to make a mistake, and they're not going to be ridiculed or you know, pointed the finger at. You have to highlight behaviour and you know, help shape people's behaviour, but you know, you can't ridicule people. And so I think that's all the lessons you learn along the way. I think at times as well as a captain, I was too hard on some and too soft on others, but you learn your lesson with that as well. So yeah, I mean, I could sort of sit here for. I think the other one that, you know, sort of obviously rings out is the not having quite got all the way in 2013, and then like that was a significant build over a period. We got to the grand final and then couldn't quite get there. I think we kicked 9-14 that day, and about 4 or 5 out in the full, and then, you know, lost by a couple of goals. And then how do you deal with such a big moment, a big, you know, significant loss? And so again, you know, opening it up that next week and having people share their stories, how they're feeling about it, being transparent, putting everything out on the table was really important, because unless you do that, if you don't deal with that, you know, at least pretty soon after the event, then it's left to bottle up, and you know, it's a long time before you get back together again and start training. So yeah, you learn lots of things along the journey, and hopefully there's a few lessons within all that helps the people listening today.
Yeah. And how important is mindset in challenge?
Critical. Yeah, critical. So you know,
and how do you manage that? Sorry, I'll add to that question.
Yeah, I mean, fixed mindset versus growth mindset. I think, you know, for a period there, I always used to think that, you know, success was, it was either set or not. You know, success was predetermined essentially. Didn't think that, you know, effort actually mattered that much. It was all about talent and luck. I thought that you know, feedback was a personal attack and not a way of getting better. So I guess that's when you're in that fixed mindset versus a growth mindset of seeing feedback as just a way of, you know, changing and shaping your behavior and trying to make you better as a person. Knowing that effort and hard work is the path to, you know, succeeding. It's not about predetermined success. No one's set on this world to succeed or fail. It's essentially up to you. Some are given a leg up. I understand that, but it is up to you to be able to achieve something. And that, you know, along that path is that, as I mentioned off the top, you're not going to wake up every day feeling like you're going to rule the world or dominate. But what are you telling yourself? What's the inner self-talk that you're saying? I think that's, you know, everyone has their moments where they are talking to themselves, saying you're not good enough, you're going to fail, You know, that's too risky, don't do that. Everyone has those moments, but it's how you're able to shift that self-talk into positive, a positive mindset, a positive self-talk that, you know, allows you to go and do things. So yeah, I guess that's sort of my summary on that.
Yeah. And do you have any tips or tools as to how people can change that mindset?
I think I mean, like anything, understanding is the first point, right? So understanding your own self. What is your self-talk at the moment? What is your mindset at the moment? Is it a fixed mindset or is it a growth mindset? So understanding is always the first path to, I guess, growth or getting better at something. The second point is getting people around you, I think, helping you with it. So if you are in a fixed mindset or if you're telling yourself negative things, then actually going to someone, a friend, a family member, you know, whoever it may be, and saying, hey, this is how I'm thinking on a daily basis or regularly. If you see any of that type of behavior, sometimes it's not obvious, but if you do see some of that type of behavior, can you please hold me accountable to that? Can you please let me know that, hey, it looks like you're being in that mindset. Can you, let's think positively, or whatever it may be. You know, getting someone on the journey with you, I think, is really important. And then thirdly, I think, I mean, I probably do it a little less than I used to, but, you know, meditating and yoga and actually having some time to give back to yourself, to re-energize yourself, is critical. And I think that definitely helps with mindset. We often get distracted with, you know, phones and devices and TV and friends and lots of noise, but just taking 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes every couple of days to tune out and just focus on yourself and your body and your mind is really important.
And so a question, I don't know if you've seen Emily's question. Are there any lessons, skills or experiences that you've gained working in a team that have helped you stay connected and also maintain healthy connections with others during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, a team environment, I'm a huge advocate for, because it's as I said before, you have this common purpose. It's a shared responsibility. It's not up to just one person. Yeah, I mean, that connectedness, I think we're hardwired as human beings to actually form communities and form groups of people because, you know, safety in numbers. When we were running around on the African savannah, you know, we actually had to bundle together because it was safer to be together. And so that safety in numbers, that team element, whether it's just, even it could be 2 or 3 people, or you know, a bigger team environment like an AFL club, that certainly helps, because you can turn to other people. You share, your issues are shared. They're not alone. They're not just one person's responsibility. They're the groups. And so yeah, really, really, really important, I think. And again, it's that, you know, I'm actually myself quite an introverted person, believe it or not. I get my energy from, you know, re-energizing myself, having a bit of my own time or time with my family. So, you know, having extroverts generally draw their energy from other people. So I certainly get a little bit of that. So actually being around someone who's energetic and bubbly and vibrant and the life of the party, for me, is actually, it's good to get a bit of that, not too much of it, but a bit of it, because that's how I draw a bit of energy, by being around other people. So I think, again, understanding where you draw your energy from. Are you someone who prefers to have a bit of quiet time to re-energize, or you need to get picked up, you need to be around other people? That's also another important thing. And teams definitely do that. You get, you know, the whole gamut, the whole variety of human beings in a team of 40 or 50 people, right? So, you know, you get to learn and emotionally connect with so many different types of personalities, which only helps as you get older.
Yeah. And so right now it's feeling like, in Western Australia at least, it's becoming a little bit more certain, but there is still a lot of uncertainty about when life as we knew it will resume, if it will resume, etc. Do you have any advice for people that are, you know, grappling with, or any young people especially that are struggling with the uncertainty of it all?
I think we're all struggling with the uncertainty of it. That would be my first point. Human beings like certainty. We like routine. We like things to stay the same. Change isn't generally associated with good feelings. So the first point is we're all going through that uncertainty. Look, I think if you're someone who is in a position to give people certainty, whether that's about job security, whether that's about love, whether that's about a target, whatever it may be, that's actually really important, just to give people some certainty when things are so uncertain. That would be sort of my advice on that piece. The other bit is a bit trickier in terms of, what advice would you give people that feeling uncertain or anxious when, and I guess that's, I know when I was a player leading into a game, if I'd feel most anxious if I hadn't felt like I'd done all my preparation. So if I hadn't, dotted every I, crossed every T with my physical preparation, watched enough vision of the team we were playing, spoken to the group about what to expect. If I hadn't done that, if I hadn't had my preparation right, it's a bit like going to an exam or a test. If you don't study properly, you're going to feel pretty awkward about the exam the next day because you haven't done the preparation. But if you've done everything you can in the lead up to the game or lead up to the test or exam, then you kind of sleep pretty well the next night because, hey, you know what, the test might be a bit awkward and it might be hard, but I've done all I can to prepare for it. So I guess in that context, the uncertainty of what's coming, if you can prepare yourself as best you can, whatever that looks like in your own worlds, to deal with it once we get out of it, then that would be, I guess, my advice on at least managing some level of anxiety through this period.
And then before we go to a couple of questions on the side, do you have any advice for young people that have similar business career aspirations as you do? Or you did, rather.
Yeah, so learn. Like, just be a sponge. Be someone who asks. Almost be that annoying person that asks a lot of questions. Be that person who wants to catch up with lots of people for a coffee, or I think having studied, I think that helps, but I don't think it's the absolute be all and end all. If study in university is for you, then I think it can be really helpful. But equally, if it's not for you, there's lots of other great initiatives out there. And there's also this that you have and the people around you that you can continue to learn from. But I think, essentially be someone who is a sponge, be someone who is proactive, be someone who connects with people, be someone who always reaches out to others and offers a helping hand, because that will come back to you in spades. And just, sometimes it's not about what you're really passionate about. That's important, but it's also about what you can endure. So understand, whatever your aspirations are, understand what that looks like. So if you want to be a CEO of a big multinational company, then you have to put up with a lot of other bits and pieces that sit under that. But if you want to be an entrepreneur and own your own business, that seems really cool, but there's lots of really crappy stuff that sit under that as well, right? So it's not, sometimes it is about passion, but other times it's about what you can actually endure. So maybe, get a granular level detail on what sort of the jobs you are, or what job you think you want, and understand what are the crappy bits about that job.
So you're saying that being a footballer wasn't like being a Hollywood star? Like
it wasn't all beer and Skittles, I can guarantee you. Yeah. I mean, there was lots of cool things, right? And lots of really nice things, but really it was about being sore. It was about being emotionally drained. It was about hard work. It was about getting lots of feedback from lots of different people all the time. Lots of people ridiculing you on social media, on general media. There's a lot of crappy things that went with it. But equally, there was some great benefits.
Yeah. And Cohen's asked, what team did you support before you made AFL?
Oh, Cohen, I was a Dockers fan. I was a Crows fan. I grew up in South Australia, so I was an Adelaide Crows supporter. Big fan as well. But that changes pretty quickly when you get drafted.
Are you allowed to have a team in media now?
No, I hope to be pretty neutral when I'm commentating, but of course I'm a Freo fan still, always will be.
Are there any other questions from anyone that's tuned in before we wrap things up?
I just realised what the time is. I'm going to have to do a run. Any other questions? I think I've got through most of them on there.
Yeah, we've the Q&A's been answered.
Okay, cool.
And we've answered the questions on the side. So thank you for your time. Thanks for making yourself available. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and, you know, some of the information that other people wouldn't know about you. Cohen said that's okay, that you supported the Crows.
Sorry, Cohen.
Yeah, just again, thank you. And I'm sure
Pleasure.
that people that tuned in have, you know, gained some insight into how a professional athlete and also how Matthew Pavlich handles challenge, and hopefully it helps them handle this challenge that we all find ourselves in. Yeah,
thank you, Ash. It's been a pleasure to speak to you and to everyone on the call. Stay safe, stay healthy, and look after yourselves and everyone that you love.
Stay distant. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.